Crackshot cop landed a kill shot on the Baton Rouge shooter from 100 yards. Authorities say Gavin Long was extremely accurate in his assassination of 3 police officers Sunday and spent several days planning the attack. But what the 29-year-old cop killer didn't count on was the shooting ability of one dead-eye Baton Rouge SWAT rifleman. The violence in Baton Rouge, Louisiana began at around 8:40 a.m. when police received reports of a man with a rifle near Airline Highway. That man was former Marine Gavin Long. At 8:42 a.m., shots were fired. 2 minutes later, Long killed one responding officer and wounded another. At 8:45 a.m., a sheriff's deputy trying to aid the injured officer engaged Long in a gunfight. Long killed both him and the officer. At around 8:46 a.m., Long was sighted near a car wash. It's here that a SWAT rifleman reportedly shot him to death from a distance of over 100 yards. 3 other officers were wounded by Long during the violence. The 3 cops Long killed were named as 2 Baton Rouge officers, 32-year-old Montrell Jackson, 41-year-old Matthew Gerald, and 45-year-old East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Deputy Brad Garafola. The shooting came after Army veteran Micah Johnson killed 5 cops during a Black Lives Matter protest earlier this month in Dallas. Long was honorably discharged from the Marines in 2010. Having joined in 2005, he reportedly rose to the rank of sergeant and also served in Iraq for several months until June 2009. On social media, he operated under the name Cosmo Setapendra and described himself as a freedom strategist, author, and mental game coach, among other things. A tweet from a Twitter account linked to Long reads, "Just because you wake up every morning doesn't mean that you're living, and just because you shed your physical body doesn't mean you're dead." It seems like Long wasn't planning on emerging from this attack alive. Armed customer who fatally shot irate man will not be prosecuted. The North Shore District Attorney in Louisiana says a man will not be prosecuted for shooting and killing 42-year-old Sean Breland when Breland attacked a convenience store in April. District Attorney Warren Montgomery said in a statement that the shooting was legally justified under the circumstances. The shooter, who has not been identified, was shopping at this Shell gas station in Mandeville, Louisiana on April 4th. Surveillance video shows Breland buying something and talking to the clerk, but Breland then becomes angry for an unknown reason. The clerk makes a phone call, prompting Breland to exit the store. He returns shortly after, still angry, and the two begin arguing. Part of the confrontation occurs off camera, but the clerk clearly had enough. He opens the door and asks Breland to leave. If only it were that simple. Breland follows the clerk around the store. That's when an armed man with his gun visibly in a holster walks up to the register to make his purchase. But he's interrupted by Breland, who continues to argue with the clerk. It goes on like this for a bit. Breland then leaves the store and returns with a bag of chips, which he opens and throws at the clerk. Breland, the clerk, and the man with the gun proceed to go outside. The armed man takes a look at Breland's license plate to give to police, which just infuriates Breland even more, so he chases him back inside. Now the man, with his gun drawn, pushes Breland away, but Breland strikes back and backs him into a corner. According to police, the man told Breland to back off 3 times, but Breland would not relent, escalating the situation even further. Left with what he thought was no choice, the man opened fire on Breland 3 times. Breland later died at a local hospital. Police have backed the DA's decision not to arrest or prosecute the shooter, agreeing that it was his right to defend himself. But what do you think? Pokemon Go is causing people in the U.S. to act really American. As Pokemon Go fever is spreading across the U.S., so too are accidents and all-round craziness caused by the ridiculously popular mobile app. People are even willing to risk their lives to play the game. 21-year-old Michael Baker was out playing the game in Forest Grove, Oregon, around 1 a.m. on Monday morning when he was stabbed. He ran into someone he thought was playing the game, but when he asked him if he wanted to battle, the stranger stabbed him in the shoulder. But rather than go to the hospital to get treated, he continued playing Go instead. Weatherman Bobby Deskins with WTSP-10 in Florida was live on air when news anchor Allison Croft walked right across the set in front of him in his weather map. while looking for Pokemon. One Brooklyn player was playing in Prospect Park at night and walking towards a lure while live streaming when he was smart enough to fall into a lake. An upstate New Yorker was playing the game in Auburn on Tuesday night when he drove off the road and slammed right into a tree. Luckily, the driver was not seriously hurt, although the same can't be said for his car. A 15-year-old Pennsylvania girl was hit by a car on Tuesday around 5 p.m. after crossing a busy highway after she had just found a Pokemon. Wonder how long it'll take before Pokemon Go claims its first fatality. Bets, anyone?
Doctors pronounce man dead, then he miraculously comes back to life. In Hubei, located in central China, the family of a man doctors had pronounced dead was preparing to bury their loved one when they noticed that the corpse was breathing and weeping. The family rushed Mr. Guo, age 45, back to the hospital as quickly as possible, where doctors were shocked to discover they were wrong. Mr. Guo was a heavy smoker and had been since he was 16. He was known to smoke at least 2 packs of cigarettes a day and could often finish a single pack in just 3 hours. 3 months ago, Mr. Guo had been talking to friends and smoking when he suddenly collapsed. His friends had rushed him to hospital, and doctors said Mr. Guo had suffered severe cerebral hemorrhaging and that his chances for survival were less than 5%. Mr. Guo remained in a coma for almost 3 months. Then one morning, the doctors pronounced him dead and informed his family they could take him home to be buried. Who'd have thought he'd surprise them all and resurrect himself? Doctors said they will have to wait until Mr. Guo wakes up to assess the extent of the damage to his brain. Cerebral hemorrhages can cause extensive brain damage that will affect a person's speech, memories, and physical coordination. But if Mr. Guo wakes up hungry for brains, everyone better be ready to run.
TomoNews.